served my mother-in-law an eviction notice at Thanksgiving dinner. The setup that became a prison. When my husband Marcus first suggested his mother move in temporarily after her divorce, I said yes without hesitation. Linda had just finalized a messy separation from her husband of 30 years, and she seemed genuinely lost. "Just 3 months," Marcus promised, his hazel eyes pleading, "until she gets back on her feet and finds her own place." That was 3 years ago. 3 entire years. What started as a guest room arrangement transformed into a hostile takeover of our home. Linda initially seemed grateful, even helpful. She'd cook dinner occasionally and keep to herself in the converted office-turned bedroom. But within weeks, subtle changes began appearing throughout our house. My kitchen towels were replaced with hers. Family photos on the mantle were rearranged to feature more pictures of Marcus as a child. The thermostat settings changed daily. Small things, easily dismissed as helpful gestures or accidents, but they were the opening moves in a calculated game of territorial dominance. The boundaries that never existed. Marcus and I had been married for 5 years when Linda moved in. We'd built a beautiful life together, successful careers, a lovely home in the suburbs, and plans to start a family. Linda's arrival put everything on pause, though neither of us realized it at first. The boundary violations started small but escalated quickly. She'd enter our bedroom without knocking, claiming she was looking for laundry. She'd open our mail, insisting she was just helping organize. But the worst was how she inserted herself into every aspect of our relationship. Date nights became family dinners. Private conversations were interrupted. Intimate moments were impossible. I tried addressing it gently. "Linda, we'd appreciate some privacy in the evenings," I'd say with a smile. She'd look wounded, eyes glistening with practiced tears. "I just don't want to be alone," she'd reply. Marcus would immediately comfort her, shooting me a look that said, "Can't you be more understanding?" The guilt trips worked perfectly every single time on her son. The poison drip campaign. Linda's strategy was brilliant in its subtlety. She never overtly attacked me. Instead, she used strategic comments designed to undermine my relationship with Marcus while positioning herself as the concerned, loving mother. "That's an interesting way to fold towels, dear. I always taught Marcus the proper method," she'd say sweetly. Or, "Don't you think this house is a bit cold? A warm home shows a warm heart." Every criticism was wrapped in apparent concern. She'd mention how tired I looked, suggesting I wasn't taking care of myself. She'd comment on my cooking, always with a gentle suggestion for improvement. She'd bring up Marcus's ex-girlfriends, reminiscing about how domestic or nurturing they were. The message was clear. I wasn't measuring up. The most damaging comments happened when I wasn't around. Marcus would come home repeating things his mother had said. Concerns about my spending, questions about my commitment to family, doubts about my readiness for children. She was poisoning the well, one carefully placed seed of doubt at a time. Our conversations became minefields where any topic could explode into an argument that somehow always traced back to his mother's observations. The breaking point built up. 2 years in, our marriage was crumbling. Marcus and I barely spoke without arguing. Our bedroom had become a war zone of whispered fights about his mother. "She's just trying to help," he'd insist. "She's trying to help herself to our entire life," I'd counter. The resentment grew like mold in damp corners, dark, persistent, and toxic. I researched tenant laws in our state. Linda had been with us over a year, paid no rent, and had established residency. Legally, she was a tenant with rights. I couldn't simply ask her to leave. She knew this too. One evening, when I gently mentioned looking at apartments together, she smiled coldly and said, "I'm quite comfortable here, thank you. Besides, Marcus would never put his own mother out on the street." She was right. Every conversation with Marcus about her moving out ended with him defending her. "She's been through so much. She's my mother. How can you be so selfish?" The guilt he carried was her most powerful weapon. Meanwhile, my mental health deteriorated. I started having panic attacks, dreading coming home to my own house. The plan forms. I hit rock bottom on a random Tuesday evening. Linda had rearranged our bedroom furniture while we were at work again. When I protested, Marcus sighed heavily and said, "It's just furniture. Why do you have to make everything a battle?" something inside me snapped. Not with anger, but with absolute clarity. I had two choices: leave my marriage or find a way to reclaim it. I spent the next month consulting with a lawyer, a therapist, and finally, a mediator who specialized in family conflicts. The lawyer confirmed what I feared: removing Linda would require formal eviction proceedings. But he also provided a roadmap. The therapist helped me understand the family dynamics at play and how to communicate effectively with Marcus. The mediator offered strategies for intervention. I documented everything: the boundary violations, the financial burden of supporting a grown woman for 3 years, the impact on our marriage. I gathered evidence of apartments in her price range and calculated what she'd saved by not paying rent. I prepared my case like a prosecutor building a trial. This wasn't about revenge. This was about survival and saving my marriage. I chose Thanksgiving deliberately. Linda loved hosting holidays, even though it was our house. She'd taken over planning our Thanksgiving, inviting extended family members without asking, and treating me like a guest in my own home. This year, I let her. I smiled, I helped prepare dishes, I played the role of grateful daughter-in-law perfectly. Marcus's sister Claire was coming, someone who'd always been kind to me and had her own complicated history with Linda. I'd called her the week before, explaining the situation honestly. "I'm not trying to turn you against your mother," I told her, "but I need witnesses to understand what's happening here isn't normal or healthy." Claire agreed to come early and observe. I also invited my parents and my brother. Linda protested, "It's getting crowded," but I insisted. "It's our home and I want my family here too," I said firmly. Marcus looked uncomfortable but didn't object. The stage was set. I had the eviction notice in my purse, properly filed with the court the day before. I had character witnesses. I had 3 years of documentation, and I had reached the end of my tolerance for being disrespected in my own home. The dinner that changed everything. Thanksgiving Day arrived with Linda in her element, ordering people around, criticizing my contribution to the meal, and holding court at the head of the table in the spot I usually sat. I remained calm, almost eerily so. My mother squeezed my hand under the table, offering silent support. Claire watched her mother with growing awareness, seeing through fresh eyes what I'd endured. Midway through dinner, during Linda's elaborate toast about family and knowing your place in the family hierarchy, I stood up. The room fell silent. "I have something to share as well," I said, my voice steady. I pulled the legal document from my purse. "Linda, this is a formal 30-day eviction notice filed with the county court yesterday. You have 30 days to vacate the premises." The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's face cycled through shock, rage, and then calculated tears. "Marcus, are you hearing this? Your wife is throwing your mother out on the street, on Thanksgiving." She turned to the gathered family, playing her favorite role, the victim. But this time, I was ready. The truth comes out. Marcus stood up, face red with anger and embarrassment. Before he could speak, I continued. "For 3 years, I've asked for boundaries, for respect, for partnership in deciding how we live in our home. For 3 years, those requests have been dismissed. This isn't about cruelty. It's about setting the boundaries that should have existed from day one." I pulled out a folder. "Linda, you've saved approximately $60,000 by living rent-free for 3 years. Here's a list of 15 apartments within your budget. Claire has offered to help you move. My parents have offered furniture from their storage. You're not being abandoned. You're being asked to establish your own independent life, which is what any grown adult should do." Claire nodded. "Mom, she's right. This has gone too far. I've watched you manipulate Marcus and undermine their marriage all evening. It needs to stop." My brother added, "No healthy adult lives with their married child for 3 years without contributing financially or respecting boundaries." Linda looked to Marcus for rescue, but something had shifted in his eyes. Maybe it was seeing his family's reactions, or hearing the evidence laid out so clearly, or simply the shock of the public confrontation. But he remained silent. The aftermath and healing. The rest of Thanksgiving was awkward but necessary. Linda retreated to her room, alternating between rage and tears. Marcus and I had our first truly honest conversation in years. He admitted he'd been blind, caught between loyalty to his mother and his marriage. I thought I was protecting her," he said quietly. "I didn't realize I was sacrificing us." The following weeks were difficult but transformative. Linda moved out within the 30 days, finding a nice apartment near Claire. Marcus started therapy, working through the guilt and codependency his mother had cultivated. We began couples counseling, learning to communicate and establish boundaries together. The house felt lighter, like a suffocating weight had lifted. Marcus's relationship with his mother didn't end. It evolved. She still had family dinners, but at her apartment or Claire's house. She visited on scheduled days with advance notice. When she tried the old manipulation tactics, Marcus recognized them and gently but firmly shut them down. Their relationship became healthier because it had appropriate boundaries. Our marriage healed slowly but surely. We remembered why we fell in love. We made plans again for careers, travel, and eventually starting the family we'd put on hold. The lesson in setting boundaries. Looking back, I don't regret serving that eviction notice on Thanksgiving. Was it dramatic? Yes. Was it necessary? Absolutely. Sometimes kindness and patience aren't enough. Sometimes you have to draw a line in the sand and enforce consequences, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it causes conflict. The moral of this story isn't about being cruel to in-laws or lacking compassion for family. It's about recognizing that boundaries aren't selfish. They're essential. It's about understanding that enabling dysfunction doesn't help anyone, including the person you're enabling. Linda ultimately benefited from living independently. She developed friendships, hobbies, and a life of her own. Our marriage survived and thrived because we learned to prioritize our partnership. If you're in a similar situation, know that you deserve respect in your own home. You deserve a partner who stands with you, not against you. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for everyone involved is to enforce healthy boundaries, even when it's hard. Your peace isn't negotiable. Your home should be your sanctuary, and your marriage should be your first priority always. This story reminds us that healthy relationships require mutual respect and clear boundaries. Compassion doesn't mean accepting disrespect, and love doesn't mean tolerating manipulation. True family support means encouraging independence and growth, not fostering dependence and control. Sometimes the bravest act of love is saying, "No more," and creating space for everyone to become their healthiest selves.